Reports of violence coming in from Lower Assam, where panchayat polls are underway.
That's right. 8 people, we're being told at this time, have died after a mob of 400 men and women from the Rabhas community armed with iron rods, axes, machetes and sticks attacked a polling station. The Rabhas community has been opposing the panchayat polls. The Tarun Gogoi government has announced a compensation of rupees 5 lakh for the deceased and 50,000 for those that have injured. What we know at this stage is that trouble started and was reported from Kamrup and Guwahati districts. Curfew imposed in the Krishnai area as well.
CNN9's Arijit Sen joining us now on the phone line from Guwahati. Arijit, what are you picking up?
Amrita, the situation is very, very critical. So far, we have received reports that 8 people have been killed in the violence. The numbers could go up. The clashes were reported in Guwahati, which is in Lower Assam. It's around 140 kilometers from the state's main city, Guwahati. Thousands of people took to the streets to enforce a public curfew which started on Monday in an apparent attempt to block government officials in Guwahati and Kamrup from reaching their polling duty stations. The roads were blocked, and even now the roads are blocked. The curfew has been imposed in the region. The shoot-at-sight orders have been imposed. The army has been called in. The situation is tense. The Rabhas are opposing the panchayat polls. They're saying that the council elections to the Rabha Hasong Autonomous Council must be held first. However, the government has decided to go ahead with the polls, citing constitutional obligations. The situation remains extremely tense. In fact, the Chief Minister has announced compensation for the victims and as well as for those who have been injured. Buses have been burnt, houses have been burnt, and in fact vehicles have been burnt, and it remains extremely tense, and the numbers, I'm afraid, might go up.
So definitely concerns that toll could rise. Arijit, some reports suggesting that the deaths took place during police firing during these protests. As you're saying, a very volatile situation there.
Yes, it's very, very volatile. At least 8 of the people who have been killed, they were killed in police firing when the 2 tribes who were opposing the joint elections, they started torching villages and attacked government officials. In fact, some of the visuals which we're getting shows that the ballot boxes have also been burnt. This violent incident of arson and blockades of roads to resist poll officials from entering what is known as the Rabha Hasong Autonomous Council area began yesterday. There was a call for a 36-hour curfew given by the Rabha Hasong Joint Movement Committee, and so there was tension in this area since yesterday, but the government wanted to go ahead with the polls. It will come out later that what actually led to this violence and why the government was not prepared. It is definitely a failure of law and order, and the army, unfortunately, has to be called in again. Amrita.
Arijit, this is Fatima. Just as you were telling us earlier, we know that the Tarun Gogoi government, of course, has announced that compensation amount. I believe it's 5 lakh for the deceased, 50,000 for those that were injured. But as you were telling us, it appears that they were completely unprepared. What we know is that there was a mob of 400 men and women, and they were armed with iron rods, axes, machetes. So really, any other sort of reactions on what's happened so far?
Well, the reactions are, the area remains very volatile. The Rabha Hasong Autonomous Council area, the people from the Rabha tribes, they've been resisting the panchayat elections from the very beginning. It was not that difficult for the government to assess. The situation might go out of hand, and it is not for the first time that this entire area along National Highway 37 and beyond, it is not for the first time that this area has seen violence from the people who live in this area, not for the first time that the government is facing resistance from the Rabhas. But they cited constitutional obligations. If at all they did that, it is a complete failure on their part because, unfortunately, because the tension was high, the situation was high, and it was all written. The Rabha Hasong Joint Movement Committee, they gave a call for a 36-hour curfew. And when they're doing that since yesterday, they were wielding weapons during a road blockade against the panchayat polls.
Right.
So it was very evident that the situation might go out of hand. Unfortunately, it has gone out of hand, and the numbers might increase. It is a complete law and order failure. The government, in a hurry, now announcing relief for those dead.